So I enjoy reading quite a bit, and I read a lot of books in general, like physical books, but then I also read a lot of electronic books. But I'm also a big fan of audiobooks. And I'm a big proponent of audiobooks. And the reason for that is, as a lawyer, I have to drive a shit ton. I've got a long commute to work. I like to work out, doing things around the house, and I listen to audiobooks. And that's the way I get a lot of reading done. Now, some people, oh, it's not reading. Well, it is reading. It's basically the same thing. It's maybe 95% of what you would do with reading, but I love history books. And this book is a historical fiction book, and it's called The Iron King, and it's by Maurice, and you could see Druyan. And he was a very highly regarded French writer, and he wrote back in between the 50s and the 70s. And this series, I'm getting ready to start the second book, but it deals with the ruler Philip the Fair, and he was the king of France, in the late 1200s, early 1300s, and his daughter, interestingly, Queen Isabella, was Edward II's wife. So if you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, she's actually much younger. She could not have had a relationship with William Wallace. That was wrong, historically inaccurate, but it was good for dramatic purposes. But Philip the Fair was a very, popular ruler in France, and he was the father of Louis the First, who came later. But he was a very influential ruler. Had this sort of great grit. That's why they called him the Iron King. He had this, strong. He was a strong military leader, strong, administrator. It helped to solidify France in terms of, making it more sort of a cohesive whole. He was descended from Charlemagne, and but it's interesting, just the way that the story is told. And I thought the writing was good. It was very vivid, but it basically, this series influenced George R. R. Martin, and is essentially what Game of Thrones is based on. And I've read most of the Game of Thrones books. I haven't read the most recent one, and I don't know if George R. R. Martin will ever finish the series. There's some debate about whether or not he'll come up with that last book. But I loved this book. I thought it was very entertaining. It was well put together. It read well. It was fast, and it was a great way to pass the time. Beats the shit out of riding around. I like podcasts. I get tired of the radio. There's only so much I can listen to the songs. Even as much as I love Bob Dylan and the Grateful Dead, I can only hear them so much. Those are my favorites. But yeah.